everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would do a colouring tutorial. I was supposed to go to my mum's house to teach her to colour today, but I wasn't feeling great and I didn't want to drive, so I thought that I could make a colouring video instead. So today I'm going to be colouring with alcohol markers. I'm using Pro markers because I've had these for like 15 years. And I used to use these in my art, so I didn't see any reason to buy different ones, but you can use whatever alcohol markers you like. The Pro marker are now brought out by Winsor & Newton, but I have a lot of the old Letraset ones, but it doesn't matter. So the first couple of things I should mention if you're going to be colouring with alcohol markers is, the first is, if you're going to stamp something to colour in, I would use a alcohol ink friendly stamping ink. So I've chosen Memento today, and I've used the grey flannel colour because I want to colour my bear in greys, and I thought it would give it a little bit of a softer look. If I was doing a brown bear, I would probably stamp it in desert sand or rich ochre, depending on what kind of brown that I was going for in my bear. And then again, that just makes it a little bit softer than always stamping in black. But sometimes you want the contrast and you want to stamp in black, so that's fine. It's just whatever you prefer. There are other inks available on the market that work with alcohol inks. I know that the Gina K Black Amalgam ink apparently is a great hybrid ink which can work with watercolour and these alcohol markers, but I don't have that, and because I've had my Mementos for such a long time and they work for me, I'm probably not going to change it. Right, so okay, and the second thing was paper. Now I find that the Nina Solar White is the best paper for colouring with alcohol markers that I found in the UK. Although if you are like me and you're on a budget, the second best thing, which still has a little bit of bleeding but not as much as regular paper, that I have found is this coated cardstock, which is made for laser printers and black inkjet printers by Ryman's, and you get 100 sheets, and I think it's about £8. So if you think about it, I could probably get 6 stamped images out of one sheet, so that lasts me a lot longer than a pack of Nina Solar White, which you get about 20 sheets in for £4. So that's just up to you and what you prefer. So I'm going to be using the cheaper paper from Ryman's today, and I'll show you the results that I get. So I want to colour in my bear grey, so I've picked these ice greys, and I picked this because I'm going to be using blues, and I find that the ice greys go better with blue tones. If I was drawing a brown bear, I would choose warm grey because the warm greys have more of a brown hue to them and it would look more homogeneous. So it's kind of important to know your colours. It will just help you get a better outcome and a more cohesive look. If you want me to do another video on colour and colour theory rather than just about how to use the pens, let me know and I will try and do that. It's a massive topic, so I'd have to have a think about how to do that. So I'm just going to start off with my lightest colour. Some people work darkest to lightest. I prefer to work lightest to darkest because I like to use my dark shades for contrast, and I can always make something darker, but it's a lot more difficult to make it lighter. So I'm just going to lay down colour in the bear, and I want to keep the paper wet with ink as much as possible. Now because this cardstock is a little bit coated, unlike other cardstocks, I actually like it because it doesn't sink in quite as quickly as other papers. So it gives me time to shade. So I'm just gonna add in shadows where I think the shadows would be. And my light source for this one is coming from here. So I'm imagining there's a big sun here and my bear is going to be in shade. So anywhere where something overlaps, like the cracker's overlapping his leg, I'm going to add in some shadow. Now that hasn't shown up as much as I want, so I'm going to skip 3 and I'm going to go for 4 and see how dark that is. And because I've worked with these pens a lot before, I'm quite familiar with the colours. But if you're not, I suggest trying them out on a scrap piece of paper to see if they work together. So that's probably going to be my dark tone, and then I'm going to go back with number 2 just to blend that out a little bit, and then I'm going to go over the whole lot with the first colour to get a nice smooth blend, and that's one leg done. And I'm just going to repeat the same process with the rest of the bear. And I'm just going to work in sections, so hopefully the ink doesn't dry, which will allow me to get a really smooth blend. Now the other thing that you can do to add dimension to your bear is think about secondary shadow points. So what I mean by that is the outside of the bear here is going to be, ooh, wrong colour, will be the darkest when I get the right colour. So that's going to be the darkest because it's furthest away from the light, as is this little crevice here, because there's literally going to be no light at all there. In fact, I might even go in with a slightly darker colour for that. And under this bit of the arm is going to be quite dark, but it might get lighter as we go along. So I'm going to pick a slightly lighter shadow shade there. There's also going to be some shadow here on his tummy, but it's not going to be as dark as this area here, so I use my mid shade for that. He also on his paw has a little like mark to demarcate where his hand is, and I'm just going to put the second shade, the mid-tone, behind his little paw. That will give it a little bit of dimension, but it's not going to be as dark as the shadow areas. And I just popped a bit of that second shade underneath his chin because that's going to be a bit darker as well, but not as dark as the darkest because it's not as far away from the light source. And you can layer up your darker shade for more contrast, and that's totally fine. And you might find that when you've done your whole picture that you see areas that you want to darken up, which is also fine. Because basically you're just assessing which part of your picture is in contrast to the other parts. So I want most contrast to be on this side. I hope I'm making sense. I've never tried to explain colouring to people before. I just kind of do it. I've never studied art or anything, not officially anyway. I've done my own like practice and things, and I do draw, and a watercolorist in my spare time, and when I was at uni I studied, not uni, when I was at school I studied graphic design, but you don't really learn too much about colour theory, but you do learn how to make things stand out, which was quite handy for card making. Right, I've just coloured in his face and his ears. His two little ears poke out the side of his hat, which is super cute. So I'm just going to do the shadows. Now on this paw, this is closest to the light, so I'm just going to put the shadow at the bottom and this side where it touches the cracker, and I'm going to leave the rest because otherwise it's going to look too dark. Now while I've got the mid-tone shade, I'm going to do a bit of his ear. I'm going to go under his hat because his hat would cast a shadow, and I'm going to do anywhere where there's a crease on his face, to the side of his nose, down the side of the cracker. I'm going to do his ear by the hat, the crease of his ear, and this side of the ear, and then I'll go back with the darker tone in a minute. Just going to highlight his nose area. Oh, I need to do the crease of the ear over here and down the side of the cracker and under the hat. And now I'm going in with a darker grey, which is the Ice Grey 4. I'm going to do under his nose. I'm going to do his little ears and in the crease there. Probably shouldn't have done that bit, but never mind. Gonna do his ear crease in that one. Under the hat on the ear, down the side of the cracker. Gonna go down the side of the cracker again here. I think I'm going to use Ice Grey 3 under his hat just for some variation, because that second shade is not quite dark enough for me, but I don't want to go with a really dark shade because that would be too dark. And I'm going to do more of that second ear because it's behind the cracker, and I'm going to do a bit more of this ear and under his belly and under his arm. So I'm just going back, adding contrast to where I think that elements need to stand out more. Do a bit more on his paw, just a tiny bit. And then I'm going to go over and blend those areas out with my lightest colour, just double checking it is my lightest colour. And it makes it look like all the work you've done has gone away, but it hasn't, because you've still got all of those layers underneath. And this works because the pens are translucent, and you can also do this with watercolours because watercolours lay down a translucent layer, although you have to check with watercolours if they're opaque or not, because the more opaque ones might cover up some of the more transparent layers underneath, like white for example. So I'm just making sure that my general tone of the bear is the same throughout the image, and I really like that. So I'm going to leave the bear now and move on to the hat and the cracker. So I'm thinking that I would like a blue cracker. So I've picked out some blue pens and I'm going to try them out on my scratch paper just to see how they go. I don't want this video to get too long, so I will colour in the cracker and their hat and then we'll see how they go. I might do a two-parter. Okay, I'm just probably going to use 2 shades because that one's far too bright. So I'm using Rock Pool and Pastel Blue. Rock Pool is a limited edition colour, but there's so many pro marker colours. I'm sure you can find one that will match with Pastel Blue, and I'll show you my pro marker chart at some point. So I'm just going to colour in cracker in the lightest colour. And you don't have to be too careful, to be honest, because with alcohol ink it spreads out, so it removes any of the lines that you would have left, so you can literally scribble and it'll still look good. Now, because this shade is quite a lot darker and I haven't picked out a mid-tone, I probably have one, but I wanted to show you on the video how you blend 2 colours that are quite different. I'm just gonna pop this in to where all the shadows would be. So again, my light source is coming from this way or this way, doesn't really matter. The shadow is going to be on this side and underneath. I'm going to go over the creases in the cracker. Can I get that a little bit just under there? And I'm going to do this bit here. Right. I also need to do this side of each of these little, don't know what you call them, the crackery bits at the end. That'll do. Now, to get a second tone, I am going to blend over that dark into the lighter shade, but I'm not going to cover the whole lot this time because I want that first layer to be my lightest colour. So it's kind of like second generation stamping, except for you get darker instead of lighter. So I'm using the second generation of my pro marker to add a mid-tone shadow. And also just to blend out that original dark shade. And as you can see now, I've got lots of dimension in my cracker. So I'm going to do the middle bit of the cracker now. So you don't have to have hundreds of pro markers or alcohol markers. And you don't have to have a ton of different shades that are like just next to each other. You can blend between them. If you get a colour that doesn't blend, please test it on a bit of scrap paper before you colour it on your image, because if you spent hours colouring in your bear and then you find out you've got a neon blue or something on your cracker, you'll be really miffed. But if you get 2 that don't blend together, it's probably because the colours that they've used in the tone to make up the colour in your pen aren't compatible. So for example, if you use a purple and a pink and they don't seem to match, it might be because the purple has too much blue in it and the pink has a lot of red in it. So you'll get like a mottle effect, which can be handy if you want to add texture. But if you don't want to add texture, it can be really annoying. So you just have to get to know your pens and your colours. And again, I've got a chart which I use that I've made. It took me months and months of like practice and going back and forth and stuff, but I finally got something that I am happy with, that helps me when I'm colouring to work out what colours, just to give me a hint, because I've got like 300 pro markers or something now, so it's harder to remember what colour combinations I like because I use a lot of different ones. So I'm using the original pastel blue to blend out that strong highlight, but also strong shadow, but also to add a second mid-tone shadowed. So for example, under the cracker here where his paw is going to be a bit darker because his paw is going to put it in shadow, whereas that's going to be bright because there's nothing obstructing the light. So I think I'm happy with that now. So I'm just going to do the bottom bit of the cracker. I'm trying to do this quickly because I don't want this video going past half an hour. Now when I'm doing my alcohol marker images, I do like to go and add coloured pencils afterwards, because I find that the drawing comes out quite flat with alcohol ink. But if that's what you like, then you don't need to do the pencils. I just do it because I'm obsessed with colouring and I've got nothing better to do with my life. But I'll do that in a separate video after this one, because I don't want to make this one too long. So again, I'm going to hit all of the creases, and the artist usually who made the stamp will put those areas in for you, those details, especially on these Lily of the Valley images. Lily of the Valley are great for adding in their little details. I'm going to blend that colour out again with my first colour, which is now going to be my mid-tone. I'm not going over where I want my lightest colour to stay true to its original colour. I'm just going over the areas that I want darker. So that's it. Now I'm just going to quickly colour his hat. Same deal as the cracker. I'm going to leave this quite monochrome with the blue and the grey and the white, because then it leaves my options open for what's the word? What papers I want to use. Usually I pick the colours from the patterned paper that I'm going to use, but as this is a tutorial, I just picked out some colours that I liked that look Christmassy. Come back to pastel blue, second layer to be my mid-tone, and now this hat is not going to have a lot of light on it at all because of where it is. It's behind the cracker, so I've only left like a small spot of the original colour in the middle. Oh, I'm leaning on something that's really uncomfortable. So I think that's probably going to be about it for the bear and the cracker and the hat. I do want to add some shadow to the white, and I am going to use, well, to be honest, you could either use the pale blue or the grey. I'm going to use the grey because there's already blue in the image, and I don't want, because the blue and the white is touching, I don't want those colours to blend in together. And I'm oh, that's the wrong colour. I'm literally going to do the tiniest because I don't want it to look grey. So I'm just doing this edge of the hat. And there's a little bauble up here. And I think I'll add some to the stars, but I think it's going to get covered up with my next bit, but we shall see. Just being careful that it doesn't merge into his paw. Oh, I think I missed a bit of his ear there. It's really hard to tell on the image. Let's just colour his ear in because he looks a bit funny with only half an ear. That's better. He looks like he's got a whole ear now. Right, and I want to colour in the stars with Wink of Stella, and I'm just going to use the silver. Yeah, we'll cover it up. I'm going to use the Wink of Stella in the shadows. Because it's quite a dark silver, but I don't want to make them look grey. So I'm going to mix that with my Stardust pen, which is by Jelly Roll, to do the lighter grey, because it's a lot more silver. And I'll go over the darker grey, because this is a warmer tone pen. Ideally I'd use a cool tone, but I don't have one. But he's still really pretty. What I might do to make that blend a bit better is use my Spectrum Noir shimmer pen. If you can't be bothered with this, you could just leave it white. I think the contrast of the white looks quite nice. Oh yeah, that's blending a bit better. Okay, and then I'm just going to clean that off because this pen picks up colour sometimes. And I'm just going to do his little hat. Brim and his pom-pom. He's so pretty. I love the James the Bear ones from Lili, the Valley. Oh, clean my brush off. Now the last thing we've got to do is some kind of grounding, because I don't like my images floating. So I'm going to use Ice Grey 5 to do the ground. What am I doing for time? Half an hour. I hope you guys don't mind it being this long, but I don't want to speed it up because I want you to see my decision making process and how long it really takes for me to colour in these images. I'm just going to do his eyes as well and his nose. And then I'm just going to step down, so this is Ice Grey 4. Not a lot of difference between 4 and 5 actually. And there's going to be more shadow on this side. And then I'm going to do 3. Oh, I got a fine nib on that one. And I'm literally just scribbling, I'm not being careful at all, because I'll show you my magic weapon. You'll laugh when you see it, because it's literally a blender pen. But it's great for doing ground. Just going to put a card underneath because I'm going to saturate this now, and it's all going to blend together. That's part of the other reason why I chose slightly darker colours on the ground, because I knew I was going over it with a blender pen and it would lift some of the colour. But it's just to help me fade that out, so it looks like a more natural shadow. What am I looking for? That one, Ice Grey. And you can repeat this as much as you want until you get the effect that you like. I like to go heavy around the edges, so it looks a bit more like you've watercoloured it, I suppose. And because I coloured in his eyes and his nose, I'm just going to add a little white gel pen to his nose for the highlights and to his eyes, so he looks like he's got pupils. And you can add white gel pen details if you want, but I'll do that in a different video because this one's getting quite long. Yeah, so that's James the Bear, all coloured in, sparkly and pretty. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching, and if you want to know anything else about colouring, leave me a comment down below. Let me know what it is and I'll do my best to make another video for you. Ooh, excuse me, I got hiccups. Thanks for watching. Bye!